Months later, the movement had crossed borders. Across Africa, people began holding silent vigils of their own. In Ghana, students wrote essays called "If I Had No Name." In Mali, farmers renamed their cooperatives after virtues: Hope Farm, Grace Field, the Land of Resolve. In the Central African Republic, children sang songs that ended not with the names of leaders, but with one word: together. What began as one grave in Burkina Faso had turned into a continent-wide awakening. Foreign reporters who came expecting protests or propaganda found something else: peace, the kind that doesn't come from speeches but from shared purpose. One BBC correspondent said, "It's not calm because things are easy here. It's calm because people have remembered who they are." Then, one morning, a box arrived at the presidential palace. No name, no address. Inside were a pair of worn-out military boots and an old photograph of 5 young soldiers. Under one face was a single letter. Traoré stared at it for a long time before saying softly, "I think we just found his name. But we won't use it." His aide asked why. The president replied, "Because he didn't die to be remembered. He died so we'd remember ourselves." That same day, the National Assembly proposed another monument, but Traoré refused again. Instead, he said, "Build more schools. Name them after virtues, not people within months." New schools stood across the nation: Courage School, Truth College, Unity Academy, the School of Silence, all carrying that same line carved into stone. He died for something we were afraid to say out loud: freedom. And something beautiful happened. For the first time in decades, the people stopped looking for heroes. They started becoming them. President Traoré later returned to the square where it all began. No stage, no bulletproof glass, just him, the wind, and thousands standing in silence. He spoke softly. "Some people rise in history because of fame or power, but some rise because they gave everything and asked for nothing. Freedom is not a theory. It's a choice, a price, a sacrifice." The crowd didn't cheer. They simply stood still because they understood. Burkina Faso hadn't just survived another attack. It had remembered what it was fighting for. And as the sun set behind the nameless grave, a little girl stepped forward, holding a small tree. She planted it beside the stone and whispered, "He stayed." Traoré looked at her, then at the people, and said his final words. "We didn't ask for permission to be free. We stood up and earned it." He didn't walk away as a leader that day. He walked away as one of them, a man among his people. If this story touched your heart, share it. Because freedom isn't found in fame. It lives in every nameless soul who chooses to stand when others kneel. As the years passed, that small grave in the center of Ouagadougou never changed. No new decorations, no monument, no spotlight. Just one stone, one tree, and a silence that carried across generations. But the world around it did change. Children grew up learning not just the name of their leaders, but the meaning of sacrifice. In classrooms, teachers no longer asked, "Who was the hero?" They asked, "What makes someone worthy of freedom?" In markets, people spoke of dignity more than despair. The story of the nameless soldier had become a quiet revolution, a reminder that real power comes from purpose, not position. Across the ocean, in places like Atlanta, Kingston, and New York, the story began to spread. African American communities, Caribbean youth, and people across the diaspora shared the line that had moved millions. He died for something we were afraid to say out loud. Freedom artists painted murals. Musicians turned his words into rhythm and song. Teachers printed the quote on classroom walls. The message had outgrown borders. It wasn't just about Burkina Faso anymore. It was about all people who had ever been silenced, forgotten, or unnamed. And then something unexpected happened. Journalists from Western countries, once skeptical, began to see what was really unfolding. It wasn't nationalism. It wasn't politics. It was identity, rediscovered through sacrifice. One French columnist wrote, "Perhaps Africa has done what the West forgot, to build heroes not from fame, but from silence." Back in Ouagadougou, President Traoré still visited the site alone sometimes. No cameras, no guards, just him and the sound of the wind. The tree planted by that little girl had grown taller, its roots deep in the red soil, its branches shading the stone. He would touch the bark and whisper, "You stood, and because you stood, we still stand." The nameless soldier was gone, but his presence lived in every act of courage that followed. In every teacher who refused to give up, every farmer who worked one more hour, every young man or woman who chose hope over fear. And maybe that's the real legacy of the grave,